Hi there, it's Touek with Breathwork Beats. In this video I'm going to show you that starting making music has never been easier, and I want to share with you my favorite tips and tools on how to progress in the fastest way and don't spend too much money on expensive hardware and software. Let's get into it. Tip number 1. Start with existing sample libraries, sound banks and templates. There are multiple services like LoopCloud or Splice which for the price of $10 to $20 give you access to an endless number of great sounding loops and samples in all genres. Learning how to use different plugins might require more time, dedication and money, but in my opinion sample packs and production templates are the quickest and most affordable way to start. They can inspire you quickly and help you build the core of your track. I personally started creating my own sample packs and templates, which will allow you to start producing music in a playful and intuitive way. And don't worry about using the same sounds as other producers. In the end, it's all about your unique way of using them and your taste in combining different sounds and genres. Another point to consider is that the amount of music produced daily is growing exponentially, and until you develop a bigger audience, no one will notice or care where you got your sounds from. The most important thing is to create music that people enjoy listening to. Tip number 2. You don't need to know music theory to make great music. I know this might sound like a bold statement, so let me share my story to give you a better perspective. I don't play any instruments, I only have an experience as a music producer and finger drummer. I have spent most of my time learning countless software and plugins and starting to finish tracks with what I knew at that time. I always used sounds and templates I liked the most and combined them in a way that sounded inspiring to me. Over time I began to understand the basics of music theory, but even now I only use the basics. From my experience, the most important thing is to be passionate about music and get inspired by certain genres, sounds, and the emotions that they carry. There are countless tutorials on how to use the basics of music theory and start creating your own music. You will learn much more while finishing your tracks. For beginners, I highly recommend starting with Scalar 2 or any other plugin that helps create great melodies and harmonies without needing to know music theory. I've made an introductory video explaining how I use Scalar 2 to create melodies and patterns with little to no knowledge of music theory. You can find the link in the description of this video. Tip number 3. Learn the basics of your software of choice. Don't overthink which software to use. I personally use Ableton and know only the basics of it. But there are many free tutorials on how to use FL Studio, Logic or Cubase. You need to learn only the basics. Look for the tutorials that helps you solve your specific problem, practice them multiple times, and you will see how fast you learn by doing. On this channel I create tutorials about the workflow in Ableton. 10 years ago I switched to it from FL Studio, which sped up my learning process like nothing else. To be honest, I know only the basics and it's still more than enough for my needs. Tip number 4. Learn how to finish your music. The problem isn't that we don't have access to the tools and knowledge. As we've discussed, we live in a time of abundance where we have access to almost everything instantly and at a low cost. The real problem is a lack of dedication to our craft. To become better at anything, including music production, set all distractions aside and dedicate as much time as possible each day to creating new music with a clear deadline to complete one piece of music per week from start to finish, ideally publishing it on a platform of your choice. Even 30 minutes to 1 hour a day for a few months will get you farther than making music twice a week for 3 hours. By refreshing your perspective every day, repeating the process over and over again, and being persistent and committed, you evolve your consciousness and expertise. This approach teaches you a lot about your sense of perfection, the necessity of work ethic, and how to judge your ideas when faced with a live audience. Push yourself to do your best. Repeat this over a few months, then years. The visible results come after months and years of this kind of work, not days and weeks. It's a longer but more rewarding process. This is also the fastest way to learn new skills and develop the work ethic necessary to achieve anything in life. Tip number 5. You don't need a studio. At the start, invest in basic equipment. There are multiple benefits to having access to different recording environments, especially if you want to release your tracks to millions of people. However, in today's world you can produce great sounding music at home without spending a lot on fancy equipment. Ideally, you would build a small home studio or at least invest in a pair of studio monitors, but if that's still not in your budget, you can start with a pair of headphones designed for music production. There are many great options on the market. I personally produce my music using Beyerdynamic DT990 headphones. I've used them for years and I am very happy with their clarity. Headphones have their pros and cons. One drawback is lack of authentic and unique experience of listening to music through speakers, where the sound bounces off the natural elements of the room. To simulate this, I use Waves NX plugin, which digitally recreates this effect. It also has multiple presets for different brands of headphones, including the model I use. Tip number 6. Learn how creativity works and find your mentors. Immerse yourself in content about creativity. Listen to interviews with your favorite musicians, producers or artists, and follow their advice. Learn about the habits of the most creative people you admire and apply them to your creative work. I personally love listening to people like Rick Rubin and Steven Pressfield. These are my go-to guys when I need to change my perspective, feel stuck, or have days when I feel uninspired and think nothing I do makes any sense or has purpose. Rubin is a music producer behind the success of many modern artists. He recently published an amazing book about creativity, which always helps me to frame problems as a normal part of the process and find a creative approach to wake up the inspiration. Steven Pressfield is the writer whose book War of Art, a classic about productivity and creativity, helped me to overcome limiting beliefs about myself and taught me the importance of work ethic in a creative career. He usually motivates me to continue working, especially during moments of doubt. More often than not, getting saturated with this kind of content gives me an additional energy to push through whatever stage of the process I am currently in. Tip number 7. Define your dream as a music producer. Making music for yourself and your friends is great, but if you feel inspired to do it, it usually means there is a bigger calling. To stay passionate and driven, you need to find something more significant than a hobby. For me, my music and art are my ways of expressing my inner world to the external world. By authentically sharing my passion for music and breathwork, I aim to make the world a more beautiful place and help inspire people to live more fully and authentically. While doing all this, my practical goal is to achieve financial freedom and independence, allowing me to spend time on the most important things in my life, which is spending as much time as possible with my family and friends, making music, and sharing it with the people. Try defining your dream in the most precise way possible. It will give you the energy to overcome many obstacles and life challenges, and perhaps provide some meaning as it did for me. Tip number 8. Learn more about spirituality and find a spiritual practice. In my personal dictionary, spirituality means nothing less, nothing more than personal growth and transformation. Striving to be a better human being to make our lives and those of our loved ones more meaningful, whatever that means for them. There are many ways to dig deeper. Breathwork, meditation, yoga, prayer, movement, traveling, immersing yourself in nature, attending a spiritual workshop, and many others. Use whatever helps you to connect to a more peaceful sense of self. By practicing these things regularly, you will quickly start to access endless reserves of creativity, inspiration, strength, and certainty that will carry you through the rough periods during the long process of becoming a successful music producer. Tip number 9. Remember that you don't have to be a music star to make money from music. There are other ways to make music production a fulfilling occupation. I personally make money from selling my music and music production templates online, the YouTube Partner Program, one-on-one music production mentoring, streaming platforms, and producing music for breathwork and yoga practitioners, as well as for different organizations and companies. Many of these monetization ideas came naturally to me through the process of constantly looking for different opportunities. In the age of social media, if you develop a specific skill and become an expert in it, opportunities will start to come to you naturally. Tip number 10. Experiment with different music genres. Don't limit yourself to one genre. Experiment with different styles to broaden your musical palette and discover your unique sound. I personally enjoy everything from handpan music and traditional folk singing to heavy trap beats and drum and bass. If you listen closely, you will find rhythm, emotion, and groove in every great piece of music, regardless of the genre. Listen a lot, attend festivals with different kinds of music, develop your unique taste, and saturate yourself with it. You will notice that you unconsciously seek these different sounds in your music production. This makes your music unique because you are combining elements that no one else has tried before. Tip number 11. Mix your passions. 4 years ago, I never thought I would create a channel dedicated to music production specifically for breathwork. Before that, I explored making music by mixing different genres, doing live finger drumming sets, and planning a standard career in the music business as a producer or live performing artist. After attending a local holotropic breathwork workshop, I realized how powerful the combination of evocative music and breathwork is. This single workshop changed something in me. During the pandemic, I explored different online breathwork courses, always wanting to learn more. One day, the idea of providing a similar music-guided experience came to me, and I immediately started writing scripts for guided breathwork sessions and creating music pieces for them. Later on, I realized that editing videos for my channel brought me as much joy as creating music. Now I'm creating templates and teaching people how to produce their own unique music. All of this is equally rewarding and fulfilling. The moral of the story is that I didn't predict these things. They happened to me. The only thing I needed to do was follow my passions and put the work. The dots started to connect after years of doing this. Since then, I've been much more open to future possibilities and try not to control the desired outcome. I realized that there is much more magic and adventure on the other side, and the results are always greater than expected. Tip number 12. Learn to enjoy the process. At the end of the day, you have to find joy in the process, either from creating content, having fun making music, or discovering the joy of overcoming difficult times, and through that creating more lasting joy and fulfillment. Both are necessary, but remember that the latter generates deeper meaning and changes you psychologically and spiritually. If I get too caught up in overthinking a certain project or the completion of a music piece that needs to be created with specific guidelines, I remind myself to set it aside for a while and start playing with sounds and templates that I really enjoy. I allow myself full freedom and just play some beats for fun. This helps me remember why I started creating music, the feeling of joy and expansion when I listen to my favorite songs or play with the sounds I love the most. On the other hand, I've learned much more from struggles and facing obstacles than from moments of happiness. So that's basically it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any specific question to the topics that I've discussed today, write them in the comment section. I will do my best to respond to them and give you additional materials to give you much more inspiration and much more resources to start making your own music. Once again, thank you for watching and see you in another video.